I'm Ryan Klein, and today I'm going to be talking about a magical force to power up your teamwork in game dev that I'm calling Spice. And let's learn about it. So, first of all, I'm Ryan. Hello. I work at Originator Games, making kid games for education. Two of the games on the store right now are Math Tango and Endless Learning Academy. Before that, I worked for the Army making different games and game adjacent software for a long time, and then I even worked on WWE 2K22, which was a lot of fun. Yeah. Um, so what am I talking about when I say spice? Let's figure out what that is. So spice is what I'm posing as a framework for the kind of energy to bring to your work and to your team, and the kind of tangible things you can do to bring that energy on a daily basis. So spice is all about being positive, adapting to your team, making an effort, being excited, and being present, expressive, and attentive when you're with your teammates. So how about some examples? So let's say you're the person who handles support tickets for your team, and you get a support ticket that's just a mom whose kid loves your game so much that they had a birthday party themed around your game, and they had a birthday cake with your characters on it. You decide to share that in your team Slack, and everybody just dogpiles it with emotes and is feeling great for the rest of the day. That's an example of bringing the spice. Let's say that a programmer on your team creates this cool shader for your cards in your game that give them a little parallax. And then last year you had this really sad thing happen where you couldn't do as much particle effects as you wanted because there was a technical issue. But maybe as an artist, you see a way that you could use that shader to fake particles in a bunch of areas in the game, and you just go for it, and sweeping through the whole game, add a whole another layer of effects that wasn't necessarily needed, but you added that extra sauce on top of what you had just because you were watching what your team was doing. That's an example of bringing the spice. And then maybe in the same vein, you're a programmer, you're coding up a button, your Jira ticket's really generic, it's like make this button, but you realize that if you add some extra knobs and whistles for the art team to do some animations, it could look really cool. So you do that, and you give them a heads up, and they come in and are able to make that button, to the 110%. Another example, bringing spice. And last one, let's say you're working on a new feature, and you realize from doing code reviews that your teammate had done a bunch of this work already in a really modular way, and you could reuse it. So you reach out to them and say thanks, and share that your work was influenced and done a lot faster because of what they did. That's another example of bringing the spice. So you start to see where this is going. All these things are helping make the environment and the team feel better, work better together, and because you're engaged and active in your team, everybody's having a better time. So why? Is this too spicy? Why bother, and why think about it in this way? The benefits of spice are not always directly tangible. Sometimes it takes a while. There's long-term value and there's some short-term value. You want to bring it to your team so that your team and through extension your game aren't bland at the end of the day. People who are having fun making are going to make more fun things. The more excitement that you and your team have, the more invested everybody is, and the more that everyone's going to put that into their individual contributions, and they're going to have the context to look around and see what everyone else is doing and realize when they need to shift course, etc. Just because everyone's trying to be active and attentive and present and positive. So let's talk about some of the long-term value. We all know that these are good things you want your team to have: trust, morale, and a good culture. But spice can help you with all of these things. So for trust, you want to build trust between your teammates, and that's one of the most important things on a game dev team, and in probably any team, really. And spice helps contribute to a mutual understanding, and it lays the groundwork for that trust to build. So, even anything simple as sharing memes about the game in your Slack chat. That opens up a channel of communication that you start to engage more with each other, and you start to build the trust. Saying thank you, just opening up avenues to keep the conversation flowing. This is especially important in remote work where, that might not be your first instinct. I've worked remote jobs for a couple of years now, exclusively, and it's been so important to be active and present in Slack, and even bug people, right? That may not be something you want to do immediately because you're like, oh, I don't want to bug that person. They're working hard right now, but it's nice to just continue the conversation. You don't want to let the conversation go so stale that it's cold now and that you guys don't talk with each other. And for morale, we always hear about wanting to maintain morale, not wanting to lose morale, but I think Spice actually pushes you in the positive direction. When you can do stuff like post that example of the kid having in this example was a math tango themed birthday party, that is going to make everybody feel better, maybe for the day, maybe for the week, maybe for the whole year. You don't know. It's worth a shot. It doesn't cost you anything to get in and make that kind of post and just be a positive influence on your team. And for culture, I like to think about culture as kind of like we took everybody in the team, added them together, and then the paths between them, right, is our communication avenues. So it might be a Slack channel, it might be Zoom meetings that we have on a regular basis. But, Spice not only helps you express your contribution to your team's culture, but it also strengthens the pathways between you and other people. Similar to how we were talking about with trust, having those pathways reinforced, kind of like a neural network or something, you're just reinforcing those by using them all the time, and expressing yourself and letting everyone know that it's okay to be yourself on the team and bring your own value in the way that you see fit. It's really important. And just in the short term, right, talking about the morale boosts, just sharing some Spice takes people from burnout, stress, that kind of space into having more momentum, more confidence. Like someone might be really feeling down in the dumps and you post a funny meme about updating your Jira tickets, and that might push them to stay an extra 30 minutes and do that, or feel good about, I have a fun team, like that. Those little things matter a lot more than you would think. And so talking a little bit more about culture, I think culture is kind of the context with which you bring your Spice. They're the meat and potatoes, and just like any seasoning, some Spice might work for one team or teammate, but not for other teammates. So you need to think about what's working and what's not. You're almost like you a comedian or you're making your own presence known. So you're presenting yourself, right? But in games, it's for fun. We're having a fun time. I know it's work, but at the same time, we're making video games. So you can go out and have fun with it, and just see what gets a reaction from people, what your teammates love, what they don't like, and be willing to share more things that they like. Everyone should feel valued on the team and feel like they're contributing directly to the product. So they need to see the context of what you're doing and what they're doing and how it works together. They need their own space and time to take pride in their own contributions. And, sometimes contributions people have bad days and good days. There might be a day where you don't get anything done, and another day where you knock out a whole feature in an hour. And that's ups and downs, and we got to remember that. And like I said earlier, keep making small talk, keep chatting with your team, make friends, especially in remote work. We feel like we shouldn't. We feel like we shouldn't ping someone, but do it. Just do it, because they can ignore it if they're super busy. And if you have something fun to say, go for it. But at the same time, if you're having super long meetings and stuff, people might get a little bit tired. So keep meetings quick and to the point, and let everybody get back to their work. Asynchronous communication is often a good way to handle this, like having a random chat in your Slack or something, or a thank you channel. Keeping that asynchronous will keep people flowing, and won't keep people, feeling like they're stuck listening to this one person ramble on for 30 minutes, like you all are now. So for morale and trust, a little bit more about that. I think it's important too to have buy-in from your team, and that might mean that you need to give your teammates more context, or even be willing to admit that you're wrong, gasp, about something. And sometimes, you might need to buy what your teammates are selling. Can you say yes? Can you find a way to see their point of view and try it out? Be open to new ideas. And you can't be too attached to your own work or your own ideas, because it's not spicy, right? You want to be part of the team, and you want to always be present and engaged. And if you're just stuck in your ideas, that's not really being a team player. And you want to build a process too where you can spend more time working together, because that builds trust and morale. Do peer reviews, sit together, pair program. This is more programmer focused, but our critiques, talking about the game's look and feel. All of this starts to garner a mutual understanding of what you're making together, and it makes you able to share the satisfaction of when an awesome thing happens and the new trailer drops, or that kind of thing. You can share it. All right, so we talked about kind of why. How do we bring it outside of those first examples? Okay, so as an individual contributor, my 3 main points are that you should share. Post your wins, post your failures, post fan reactions, post friends and family playing the game, post memes, post everything. Just be annoying with it. Just post stuff and keep people informed about where you're at, what you're doing, and what you like, and what's going on. And it makes work a more fun and friendly place. And think about how you can do that proactively. What can you do to make work a fun place today? And make an effort. Just wake up and be positive and speak up and say thanks and celebrate your colleagues and yourself when you do something great, and express yourself. I want to know what makes you special and what you bring to the team and your values and what you care about. And I want to celebrate everyone's differences. And like they say, a variety is the spice of life. So bring it. And then in more of a lead role, I think some of the things you can do are help maintain context, facilitate people working together, host playtest sessions, make them fun, bring everybody in, let them get some lunch or something and have a good time. And you got to keep that context going by explaining, design decisions or business decisions. Why are we doing this? It helps when the team knows, because they can come up with ideas that maybe you didn't think of. And then, document stuff. You can explain stuff synchronously to everyone, but having that asynchronous backup so they can go back and refer. People that maybe missed the meeting can look at it. Really important as well. And really important is just care about folks. And remember that we're making video games. This isn't brain surgery. At the end of the day, it's important, but it's not that important. So we can always cut features, but we can't cut into our teammates, right? We're not going to cut their sanity over, whether or not we get to skateboard in this one section of the game. So, be willing to adapt and do what's fun for everybody. And then find out also what motivates your teammates individually and helps them reach that. Is there a way this fits into the game somehow? Like, not only their skills, but what they want to do, which is often, sadly, kind of ignored. It's like people look at what people are good at or what they've done in the past, and they don't really ask, hey, what do you want to do? And how can we get you there? And then, lastly, just clear the way for everybody. Make them space and time to take pride in their work. If there's big falls, like, oh, we got our funding cut or something, work on how can you cushion those falls? How can you look on the bright side of the bad news? And how can you, promote the good news and keep it, front and center in the context of the team? And also find ways to lighten the load. Can you shift work off one person who's overwhelmed onto someone who feels a little light? Are there ways that you can spread the workload so no one's feeling crushed by it? And that's all I got for Spice. I would love to hear examples about Spice brought in your workplace, or if you have any questions about the presentation, I'd love to answer those now too. Thanks for tuning in.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Yeah, good stuff. We need to get you to promote your own projects more during these in the future. But I did at least post a link to Laserbread Games. The main series of questions have all kind of talked about how do you get people used to this process who aren't. Let me start with a question from YouTube from Nick Williams. I'm often stuck for hours in my own little thoughts and ideas, so it will always hurt if it is not picked. I also hang on like death is calling to an idea. How do I break this habit?
Yeah, so it's hard to get used to like kind of the killing your babies concept in games. And I think one thing I've noticed is the more that I've just practiced that, for example, one thing that got me real used to it real quick was peer reviews and just, because I'm a programmer, so, putting my code out there and then just getting it torn to pieces, and after that happens 30 times, you build calluses and you realize you got to think too, you put it in the context of your teammates are not trying to tear you down. They're trying to help, so they're pointing out things, it's not personal. It's not about your inability to make decisions. It's about what'll make the game better. And you might have had a great idea, but you might not have the context that your teammate has. It is a tough one to get used to, and it took me a long time, and I'm still not 100% on it. Like, I get attached to ideas. I'll just open up a design document and design a whole thing, and I know we're just going to crumble it up and throw it in the trash, but I just needed to, So sometimes you gotta be willing to just do that. So maybe some more practice and just try that, make some stuff, design some stuff, knowing it's not going to go anywhere, and show it to some people and let them tear it up, and then just, become okay with it over time.
Yeah, and let's bring this over to the peer review process, which a number of folks have talked about. Let's start about more general communication first, and then going from there. So, Cave Geek noticed getting good communication from people is so hard these days. It's frustrating. A lot of creatives perhaps aren't used to having others involved in the process. So, with you kind of being more in a team lead position, how do you start pulling this out of people?
Yeah, so I've always heard there are kind of two forms of people, and this is a kind of a nice way to think about it. There are pushers and pullers, right? So a pusher, you want to be open so that they can come push on you when they have an opinion. Those are the people that, when you say something, they'll come DM you in 20 minutes and say, hey, what was that about? So you want to be open for that, but you also might need to come tug on some people that are quieter or more, kind of reserved. I think this happens more too in like the indie space when you're working with like freelancers or people that are typically kind of the lone wolf style developers. They might not want to share as much. So I think opening the floor for sharing in a safe space, like having a weekly playtest session, and then having a whole chunk of time that's like taking feedback, like let's go, like give us your input, or in general, as far as posting like fun stuff and interesting stuff, it's just about keeping someone motivated and keeping a friendly relationship, and then it might happen, it might not, they just might not be that kind of person. But I think that the more everyone's thinking about this, at least somebody on the team will be doing it, and that'll help a lot. Not everybody's going to be the bearers of the spice, so to speak, but you might have a few people on the team that are really into that and then like really actively posting stuff, and other people that are benefiting from the positive energy coming out of that, but aren't as active in it, and that's fine. Maybe they're more introverted kind of folk, and that's totally fine. It's just about opening up a space for them to do it if they want to, and letting them know that we would love for you to express yourself.
All right, we have a question from Discord. Do you have any advice for small teams working asynchronously?
Yeah. So I've been working pretty asynchronously for a while now. People in different time zones and stuff. So I think you need a lot less face-to-face meetings than it seems like you do, you can chat over Discord, you can chat over Slack to hammer things out. There are times when it would be quicker just to talk in person, and so find out what window of time you're both available, and just schedule meetings for then. Which sounds obvious, but it's like I've had a lot of teammates like do things like call me out of the blue, working asynchronously, and I think you should avoid that. Like you should always ping someone first and say, "Hey, I would like to talk to you about this." Don't just ping, "Hey," explain in the first message why you need to talk to them, and then they can get back to you at their convenience. If it's blocking you, you can mention that in the text message, like, "Hey, this is important because I'm stuck without your input." Um, and generally trying to work at times when the other person is at least somewhat active is good. I know it's like there's kind of two camps on this as far as like work life balance goes, but because I work asynchronously, I keep like Slack, which is what we use on my team, on my phone, and I'll be responding to stuff late into the night. Not I'm not getting on, I'm not programming, but like if someone needs my help, I'm available. Just a quick text, So find out what works for you in that regard. But I think in general, the same things apply. Be open and honest, and express your full intention when you message someone asynchronously, and try not to expect them to respond in a synchronous way, if you know that they're working asynchronously too.
Now, it feels like a number of these tips could be problematic. For instance, I've definitely seen peer reviews where the company politics were a part of it. How do you get things back on track when you feel that personal agendas are starting to undercut the whole spice route?
Yeah, that's a good question, because there are times when people are not being as nice as would be ideal, right? And I think an important thing to take away as an individual working in a team where maybe someone's not being as much of a team player is just ignore them. Like I know it sounds like the opposite of what I've been saying, but um, yeah, sometimes people are just they have their own agenda and it's not aligning with what you're wanting to do or what the team's wanting to do, and it's okay to ignore somebody, to the extent that it's not helpful, right? Like if their comments are not helpful, and there's a fine line between like they're actively disrupting the team, and then you should probably have a conversation with them or whoever's managing them and say, "Hey, this is getting in the way," as part of like clearing obstacles. If someone's not wanting to cooperate, and it could be a case too of, like I said, like not all teammates like the spice the way you want to bring it, right? So like you're messaging someone a lot, maybe they want you to stop, and they're like, "Go away." So you have to be willing to be okay, and stop messaging them. Like maybe they don't want that. Um, you gotta play this fine line of being okay with being a little bit embarrassed, feeling a little bit annoying, and then when someone tells you to stop, saying sure, and then backing down. But yeah, if I guess that's the main thing is just like it's more okay than you think to just let somebody do their thing and kind of ignore them if you don't agree, with the way that they're talking about something. Because peer reviews are just that, they're a review. So if someone's like dogging on you for stuff, you can just be like, "I disagree," and commit it. You got to have a peer review process where that's okay as well, where you can say, "I don't think so," and maybe you guys can talk it out.
All right, yeah, and I will say that as a specific example of how to bring the spice, I found all the studios I've worked at, the actual gaming was the best way to get devs talking and hanging out and sharing effectively. So definitely game with your teammates, and I think board games are even better than computer games for that because you are face to face. If you're in the same room on a headset, it's not as good as face to face. All right, let's talk one more thing about the peer review. Can you give some examples of good feedback from peer reviews and bad ways to phrase your feedback in peer reviews?
Sure. Yeah. I think you should, when doing a peer review, you should always phrase your feedback in an impartial kind of way. Like, wouldn't like do you think it would be better if you used a const here? I recommend using this here because, and explain. Think about it as a teaching moment for both of you. Maybe they're doing something that you don't understand. Ask, just say, "Hey, why are you doing this? I don't. Can you explain a little bit about what this situation is? Maybe you don't know why they're using this particular parameter this way or whatever. You can ask things just as much as you can request them make changes. And if you have like a style guide or coding standards, those are a really good way to make it impartial because you can just say, hey, this right here doesn't comply with coding standards. Please fix. And that's just a very clean cut. It doesn't feel personal, right? What I wouldn't do is say something like, this is dumb. I don't like this. Why would you do that? Like accusatory tone, or coming off as mean, because you got to realize that like this person, even if they're a seasoned professional, is going to have strong feelings about their code. You shouldn't just come in there with a sledgehammer and angrily smash stuff. You got to be a little bit more, like I said, staying positive, right? So yeah, I would just try not to sound too aggressive, and then try to stay impartial and keep in mind and keep in your tone that you're just trying to help the project shape up better. And they might disagree with you, and that's okay. Like, don't get too heated. Like, if they're like, no, I did this because this, maybe that's fine.
All right. Great feedback, great input, and very spicy presentation. Much appreciated, Ryan. We'll be back next. So we've talked about a few different aspects of game dev. Next, it's the self-publishing side. So one more time, thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, guys.
He'll be in
Thanks,
our
everybody.
Discord chat. Cheers.